difference between the newsreader thing. Hey, kia ora koutou te whānau. Welcome back to another episode of Big Hairy News. Kia ora, Chewie. You right there, love? You getting on? You okay?
Kia ora, Pat.
No stress in your life, I take it? Okay.
No stress. I was just watching the latest episode of Peacekeeper. I had a very busy week last week, so I feel like my television that I watch has given me homework. So
what's Peacekeeper?
Peacekeeper's the sort of spin-off from the Suicide Squad with John Cena in it.
The guy in the helmet.
Yeah, that's the one.
How is it? Is it any good? You think? I mean, like
I
like John, I like John Cena in some roles,
Cena.
but I don't know how much I rate him as a pure actor. But I guess it's the role that was written for him. That kind of.
I think he's
thing.
he's a brilliant natural comedic actor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like the character. I like the world that they're building. I like John Cena. So yeah, there's a lot to like.
Did you see The Rock in the last few days? Everyone's like, has The Rock got cancer? He's like, looks like he's lost half his body weight in muscle. Yeah, the people.
Yeah, no, I did see a picture of him. He's quite a bit smaller.
He is quite a bit smaller. I wonder what's going on there. You may or may not have noticed, and I'm sorry I'm doing two things at once here. I did just start the show with a huge smile because I opened some particular files, Chewie. Should we tell the whānau what the files are that I opened? That we talked about beforehand? I've got some
files. The special files.
I've got some dog merch. I've got some.
Oh, those files. Those files.
Pat and Chewie and Elva and Nala files. What should we do? Should we do that radio thing and make them stay with us to see them? Or
no, because I've been waiting months.
Okay.
It's about me, Pat.
Okay, so this is our very quick introduction before we get to our big part of the show. Here's the first one. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. And what about this one? Ready?
Hey.
That's pretty good.
It's good.
And then
Happy
of course,
days.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Round of applause for Emily. Round of applause. My dog's down there at the moment, asleep. And of course, people didn't see this, but I was changing out a camera 60 seconds before we went live because the battery of the other one was exhausted. So I don't have cameras to show you now tonight. It's just me. And I think the plan has always been with these is we will do that Pat and Chewie BHN, but instead of Pat and Chewie, it'll be Nala and Elva. So, yeah. Yeah. Very good.
Very cool.
Happy. Very
good having an in-house artist.
Yes. To do the things, the art things. Guys, lots going on tonight. We are going to be having a look at Winston Peters. He's a bit of a grumpy guts. And the irony, Chewie, is the reason he's grumpy is not because of the change in legislation where he's gone back on his decades of work of keeping foreign buyers out, but he's grumpy because how the media are reporting it. It's not a foreign buy. It's not a change because they're still not involved with 99% of the house sale. So that's all fine. So I'll have a bit of a look at that. And also, sorry, that was the universal sign for the 15-year-old just got home. That one there. And also, it's interesting going Christopher Luxon at the moment and this whole Amazon $7.5 billion, $11 billion injection. And Christopher Luxon going, we're open for business. And you kind of have to go, I see you're open for business, but this deal was done by the last person who owned the shop. Like before you bought the shop. Yeah.
Years ago.
The guys who own the dairy before you own the dairy, your dairy's open for business, but this is because of the guys who sold you the dairy, who owned the dairy before you. That's where this deal is from. And it's an interesting little one to get to as well.
I mean, I'm sure we'll dig deeper into this, but just real quick, what I hated about that story is its timeline. So he announced it, and you had outlets like Stuff and the Herald breathlessly reporting, 10,000 jobs and just basically taking it verbatim from the government. And then you see commentators online going, hang on, Amazon's been buying land for this data center for years now. This was announced 4 years ago, and then we had the mainstream media catching up and going, well, actually, yeah, it's been in the pipeline for 4 years, and the 1,000 jobs promised are pretty much just the construction jobs, and maybe there'll be 100 jobs come out of this whole project for New Zealand. There's no comment on whether they've received tax breaks or cutbacks, but famously Amazon's not real big on paying tax. So where's the benefit?
Yeah, it did feel a little bit like that famous Waitangi Day speech, which was the same as the Waitangi Day speech he did the year before, word for word. It did feel like he was maybe reading Jacinda's speech a little bit, and it's like, oh, okay, got it. I have to say as well, the media, they're on it like that, man. Like the news came for his press release before the press conference, I should say, was over. The media had said, "No, this is not yours. This belonged to the guys before you." I guess the credit you would give them is they didn't blow the deal, so they can have a little bit there. It'd be like the dairy owner; he didn't like turn it into a different shop and lose the deal. So 1%.
And Chippy got a fucking good hit in.
Yeah,
he got it. I'm sure we'll talk about this later on the show, but we'll just leave that there. And like we were gassing Kieran up for being vicious in the house. I think Chippy deserves a little hat tip for getting a new acronym across the board.
Yeah, fuck, I'm good. All right. Now, what could be better than? What could be better than not just a clickbaity heading? So I'm just trying to turn my sound off. Not just a clickbaity heading, but a clickbaity heading that is also true. New Zealand's Epstein Files. That'll get a few people clicking on it. New Zealand's Epstein Files. Big names at the moment. New Zealand's Epstein Files is an article, an investigative article written by a couple of guests who are about to join us, Dr. Ryan Ward and Melanie Nelson. Let's welcome them to the show right now. Welcome to the show, Ryan. Welcome to the show, Melanie.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Let's try and do this properly. I haven't got my reading glasses on. I'm actually an old man now, and look how small this print is. It's microscopic, but we'll give it a go. Because it's really good for people to know where you guys have come from. Ryan, we haven't met you before. So Ryan is a senior lecturer in the Department of Psychology at the University of Otago. He received his PhD in experimental something completed postdoctoral fellowship. I think my printer cut a word off there. Sorry, sir. In the Department of
Psychology.
There you go. Completed in the Department of Psychiatry and Neuroscience at Columbus University in New York City. You got out of there just early enough, Ryan, before ICE came in. For some reason, you said something wrong, threw you out of the country. And we all know Melanie, but as Melanie said to us the other day, it's like there's not a lot of te reo interpretation going on today, is there? There's not a lot of that translation work going on under this current government. Melanie is a researcher and writer publishing regularly on Substack, which is what we're going to look at in a second. She hosts the Coherent podcast, which analyzes political and cultural understanding. She's also a te reo Maori translator, treaty educator, and a cross-cultural consultant. As we always say, we love being the dumbest in the room, and we are way at the bottom of the barrel in this conversation. So thanks for joining us, Tim. We appreciate it a lot.
Thanks so much for having us on. Great to talk to you guys.
Very excited to talk about this. Now, I'm excited to talk about it, but it's quite dense in information as well. So it'll be interesting to see how we kind of flesh it out without kind of welcoming in the new year that we spend that long and doing on it. So we get to the bits and bobs, but let's start by just showing the whānau, because I wasn't lying. It's a great heading. Who wouldn't click on that? New Zealand's Epstein Files. It's absolutely perfect. I'll just read the introduction paragraph so people know where we're at. New Zealand's controversial Regulatory Standards Bill 2025 may look like a technical fix, a tidy set of principles to improve lawmaking, and this is largely how its proponents have described it. But documents released under the OIA uncover a more complex reality. The bill is a product of a decades-long project to shape New Zealand's legal foundations using regulation itself as a background. So why don't we just leave it there, us guys, and we throw you the ball, either one of you, and you can give us the introduction as to what we're looking at and what we're talking about, and then we can ask a few questions about it.
Yeah, cool. Using regulation itself as the battleground. So article, which has taken quite some time to pull together, is based on an Official Information Act request that Ryan Ward did. So it's based on those documents that were released and also further research by both of us. And perhaps I'll just give a bit of an overview and then we can delve into different aspects. So the documents show the influence of significant lobbying by Bryce Wilkinson, who's a senior figure at the New Zealand Initiative in the Ministry for Regulation. So lobbying on all sorts of things, which we can get to later, but also particularly on the detail of the Regulatory Standards Bill and the Ministry's approach to regulation overall. And a core part of his lobbying that was revealed by these OIA documents is with the work of Richard Epstein, who is a fringe American legal scholar. And he came up with the doctrine of regulatory takings, and people might be familiar with the term regulatory takings, which is sort of at the core really of the Regulatory Standards Bill. This concept that when property rights are restricted or constrained by regulation, there should be compensation paid. And so Epstein's doctrine reframes public interest law as a form of harm. And also, the flip side of that is it's a rent-seeking opportunity. So if your property rights into the future, because this can include income and profits into the future, are restrained by regulation, then potentially you could make quite a lot of money out of the compensation if you've been doing speculative investment in areas that might become regulated. We can come back to that as well. So just the background, Epstein's visited New Zealand at least 4 times since 1990 as a guest of the New Zealand Initiative and given over 30 addresses. And he's been talking about a regulatory constitution for New Zealand since at least the end of the 1990s. And so essentially, these documents show really clearly that it's this foreign idea which is imported. And if we implement the RSB in its current form, then New Zealand would be the first country in the world to incorporate regulatory takings into domestic law. And Epstein himself has noted that, New Zealand is a great place to trial this because he sees us as having a lack of constitutional protections for property. So, yeah, it would essentially make us a global experiment ground.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we'll probably get to as well. Why New Zealand? Why New Zealand? But one of the things I got from reading your article is I'll use a phrase which is a little bit. I mean, it's not a nice phrase, and I acknowledge it's not a nice phrase. But people on the right in the libertarian world would use this phrase. They come across like the biggest welfare queens in the world. They're like these guys who like to smash the welfare state and keep everybody down. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, if you infringe on my rights, gimme. Come on, give me some of that money, government. Gimme. And they go on and on and on and on. And the way you word it is about property rights. And I think, Chewie, that we have seen David Seymour in the last 12 months hit that property rights, those words, more so than anything else he's doing. Like half of his answers, what did you have for lunch? Oh, well, property rights, like every time he just goes there. But the insidious nature that, I'll read this paragraph. It says, one of the most controversial aspects of Epstein's approach is its potential to something regulation, my printer's cut off, I apologize for that, into a source of speculative income, which is what you were just saying. Under its doctrine, any government action that constrains private property rights, whether over land, resources, businesses, intellectual property, leases, licenses, or contracts, could create the expectation compensation should be paid. Now, obviously, that's compensation from the government. That's what I'm saying. It's like these guys who are all like free market and, market decides, and they're like, no, we'll have some of that public money, please. At the same time, it seems very incongruent, those things they're saying and the things they're saying, this is what our philosophy will allow us to do.
Yeah, I think... Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, I think it's a really interesting development of the legal theory because it originally comes from the idea that the government can't take your property, right, without paying you some kind of compensation. which seems like a good thing, in a democracy, that the government can't come in and just kind of seize whatever it wants.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think where Epstein and other thinkers have kind of really pushed the ball with this is in envisioning any type of government regulation as an infringement on property rights, right? And so, it's just like the sky's the limit, right? Any time you can kind of make a case for regulation infringing on some kind of property rights, and the article says contracts between employers and employees, actual property, if the government limits your ability to develop something in the way that you would like to, right? If their regulation causes you to lose some kind of income, or even, it's really far-reaching and could have some really negative impacts.
But this is the thing, right? And you guys need to educate us on this. We had Huhana Linden from the Greens on last week, I think it was. And we realized very quickly under this government, there's a clip up on the YouTube channel if people want to check it out, that the government's pretty keen in confiscating and taking Maori property. Like they've got lots of legislation at the moment that would take that. So it seems like, don't touch our properties. Don't you tell us what to do with our properties. Oh, and whilst you're leaving us alone, we're going to go take Maori property off them. We're going to just, because there's a good reason for that. But yeah, no, don't tell me what to do with my property. There's another incongruity there between what they're saying and what they're doing.
Yeah, I've been reading, or finished reading Epstein's, he's actually got a whole book on regulatory takings called Takings. Very creative title. And yeah, he does talk a little bit about this. And so I think it's important to know that this applies to individual property rights. And so there's a differentiation there with traditional Maori rights to property. And he also says that there should be, that it's that kind of concept that government didn't create property rights and people didn't create them, they just exist, and whoever found the property, it's theirs, that kind of first seer. But then that he thinks there should be a statute of limitations, so there's a point at which the first discoverers aren't actually owed any compensation just because other people have it now, kind of thing. So there's some quite wily arguments around that sort of thing, but I definitely think it's a real hypocrisy in that line of thinking. And interestingly, the government's not proposing just compensation for historic land confiscations and has explicitly excluded treaty settlements and the Marine and Coastal Area Act from the Regulatory Standards Bill in two areas in which, just compensation for what has been taken or impaired would probably bankrupt the government.
I've been lucky enough to read the article. I don't know if Chewie's had a chance to get to it. Chewie, you might have some questions that come off the top of the dome here, but one more before we throw to Chewie. I found it concerning that Bryce Wilkinson, so the associate with the New Zealand Initiative, that David Seymour's his portfolio, his department, the Ministry for Regulation, went to him to seek advice. So the Ministry for Regulation was set up, and as you're writing it, the ministry then went to the New Zealand Initiative, or certainly an associate of its, who is now tied up in this Epstein Files as well, to seek advice for what they should do. It seems a bit murky. And where are the lines of demarcation between public servant and sort of private entity? It seems concerning.
Yeah, I mean, I think like Wilkinson has long been involved. Both, I mean, he worked in the Treasury, and he's long been involved in the New Zealand Initiative, and he actually was the one who, in 2001, kind of wrote the first draft of the Regulatory Standards Bill, which was the Regulatory Responsibility Bill at that time. So, yeah, I mean, on the one hand, and this is, what Seymour has said, well, obviously we would consult with Bryce. He's kind of the architect of this bill, and he's kind of the one who's been thinking about these ideas and things. But I do think what the OIA documents showed, and what we kind of try to convey in the article, is a real sustained campaign that wasn't necessarily transparent, right? That was, Wilkinson was really trying to shape the character and the specific aspects of this version of the bill, right? Mm-hmm. And also, one of the things that we'll be looking at in future pieces is he really kind of drove the recruitment of the chief economist for the Ministry for Regulation as well. Writing the interview questions and sitting in on interviews and things to I think, in a way that pretty much guaranteed that the ministry would hire somebody who was sympathetic to, Wilkinson's and Epstein's views. And I just think, Andrea Vance kind of broke this lobbying story first in the Post, right? A bit ago. And yeah, there's a lot of talk, in the periphery, independent media or whatever, about the need for kind of a lobbying register, which documents, activity around private actors kind of lobbying the government and participating in this way. And I think this just kind of goes to show that this really is a concern, and it's something that the public isn't aware of, but it's these kind of private actors given really high level and preferential access to this kind of legislative process, and I think it's a problem.
Yeah, Chewie, what you thinking?
So, if I could draw a straight line here, we have David Seymour and ACT, who think that Atlas is a complete conspiracy theory, and don't try and pin this on me, has got into government and as part of the coalition agreement negotiated to have a special Ministry of Regulation to cut red tape. And his first order of business is to reach out to the New Zealand Initiative and an extreme edge person that's got some very interesting views on regulation, who has done seminars with Atlas around the world. And this is how we've ended up with the RSP. Is that just like the cliff notes of this whole thing? Because I don't feel like that guy in front of the pinboard with all the red threads being the crazy man here. This seems to be both, well, a little bit hidden, but also once you pull the tablecloth of it, it's all there. Mm. Would that be accurate?
I think one of the things with the Regulatory Standards Bill is, and Pat was joking about the clickbait title, and I think it's fair enough that we've got a clickbait title now, because we've had to have titles with Regulatory Standards Bill for like 8 months, and if we've managed that, then I think we deserve an easy run now. But
totally.
But yeah, I think the RSB has been presented as very dry and boring and technical, and we haven't had shared with the public what actually the theoretical background is for the origin of this concept of regulatory takings and what its intention is. And Epstein's really clear that it would invalidate swathes of 18th, 19th, 20th century law that's anything to uplift the environment or society, or that's redistribution, as this is set to in his world, this should make it very difficult and expensive for government to pass public interest law, and so they'll only do the things which are really critical, which means that much of it won't happen. What we did find out in our research is that Epstein is associated with several of the American right neoliberal think tanks. He's a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution. Since the year 2000, he's a visiting scholar at the Manhattan Institute, and he's a regular contributor to Cato Institute publications and has been since the 1980s, for example. So there's definitely, he's got the strong connections there, and I think is highly regarded in those circles and in the circles of those who would like to progress this kind of property absolutism, and probably in various places in the world, but see New Zealand as a great place to experiment. And, you know, as we know, we were one of the leading experiment grounds in the 1980s and 90s with the neoliberal reforms, and this is a continuation of that. And I guess what is most concerning is that, you know, the actuals behind this haven't been presented, and the thinking and philosophy behind it haven't been presented transparently for people to really consider, do we want to do this? So it's the public debate and awareness of what this actually means, this concept.
Yeah, so this really... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ron.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, by way of kind of answering, you know, your question of whether or not this is a Cliff's Notes kind of version of it. I mean, I think one of the reasons why I made the OIA request is just because I've got a long-standing interest in kind of the history of the development of these kind of these business think tanks, and you know, kind of how they lobby the government and where their intellectual and philosophical kind of foundations come from. And I think it's real important to know that the kind of philosophy that Seymour and Wilkinson talk about, you know, the democratic rights and classical liberal kind of ideas of freedom and liberty, those had been developed over the last 100 years due to kind of a direct campaign by corporate interests in the United States to find an intellectual foundation for their campaign against government regulation. So for myself, I mean, anytime I hear, you know, David Seymour talk about democracy or classical liberalism, I like, my ears just perk up, right? Because if you know the history there, it's just it's democratic speak for a corporate agenda. So I think you know, when the OIA documents came in, and it was clear that, you know, since the 90s, this person had come over and was really kind of shaping the thinking around regulation in such a way that you have these really sort of, like Melanie said, property absolutist notions of any kind of regulation the government does is infringing on property rights, right? Nothing is viewed as beneficial. It just really ties right into that kind of just that corporate agenda that, like I said, they've been honing their agenda for at least 100 years. And we're just kind of, we're still seeing it, you know, it's still the same playbook. And it just kind of changes its face depending on who's the public figure in front of, you know, who's in government at any given time. So, yeah, I don't know. That was a kind of a roundabout way, I hope, of answering that.
It just makes me think as well, what are we missing? Like, did anyone else do an OIA on this, or was it just you? I mean, you've got in your article, you've got conversations between the parties. Any chance of a chat on the Regulatory Standards Bill this week, or is it safe enough to email you? You know, hello, it's pretty, it seems like if you hadn't have done this, we wouldn't be talking about this. And then I kind of go, holy crap, what else is happening every single day that no one knows about, that no one's doing an OIO for? It makes me think as well, like you talk in the article about the shift if this kind of policy was to go through. You talk about if the Regulatory Standards Bill was to pass in its current form. And you say in one part of that section of the article, the shift undermines areas like environmental protection, utility, urban planning, labour laws, equity measures, public service, and social policy. You know, all those unimportant things in life. But what I thought of when I read a different part linking back to that, where you said this: the bill was not a central feature of the election campaign, yet with just 8% of the vote supporting ACT, a commitment to pass a Regulatory Standards Act was written into the coalition agreement. Did Luxon know? Did Luxon know the door he was opening? Or is this another example of a terrible politician having any means to an end? I will give up anything to get into that 9th floor of the Beehive and then get my knighthood after 3, 6, 9 years. Because we are firm believers when you hear Erica Stanford talking about how the Prime Minister is not responsible for the word out of David Seymour's mouth. We're like, no. If you're the CEO Prime Minister, then the buck stops with you. If you open the door and something breaks, and you have responsibility to that thing breaking. I don't know, this is more an opinion-based question, but did Luxon know? Did anybody know the thing that they've been working on for what you guys are saying is a couple of decades could have done this? And they basically said, yeah, we'll do that as long as I get to be Prime Minister.
$1 million question. Neither of us are jumping in.
You want to go, Mel? Yeah.
Well, look, because I can almost answer it myself. Because if he did know, he's as evil as, and if he didn't know, he's a pathetic waste of space. Which one do you want to pick? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
But this bill has been around since 2001 and was first introduced 2005 or 6. And there's been a task force on it. There's a whole edition of Policy Quarter on it, 15 or so years ago. So there was a lot of information out there. If in negotiations the National Party didn't know about it and wanted to look into it. So I'm not, we have experts like Sir Geoffrey Palmer and Jane Kelsey who've been writing and talking about it for decades. So they could have known. If they didn't know, I think, probably where National and New Zealand First go with the Select Committee report and with what changes, if any, they hold a line on before the second reading will perhaps tell us a lot more about where they stand on it. Both parties are being fairly quiet now, but we do know that New Zealand First and National have both said they're looking to see some changes through the Select Committee process.
You're in a dark place if you sit back and go, well, Winston Peters might save us. I mean, like, what kind of place are you in? I also want to ask about why New Zealand. You do write a bit about that in there, but why is Epstein experimenting on New Zealand? But maybe before we get off this topic, especially to do with how the government's running, Chewie, you got anything else you want to jump in on that one, this kind of area of the conversation before we move?
I've got to say, I'm a bit stunned. I'm just marinating the whole thing around in my head, so I don't really have any questions. But I'm stunned by this whole thing. This is phenomenal work, and has some really scary consequences. So yeah, no questions.
And I think
it was a lot of work. We've trawled through hundreds of pages of OIA documents.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, I think I want to say too, you hinted before that there's like that, spice of conspiracy theory around it. And I want to make really clear that this is really clear and well documented. If you look at the OIA documents, you look at what Epstein's written, but also I've got a quote in here which was from Roger Kerr, who was head of the Business Roundtable, and it was a 2009 interview with RNZ, and he noted that Wilkinson was on the task force exploring the idea of a Regulatory Responsibility Act, and this is to quote, which harks back to some of the ideas we were talking about associated with Richard Epstein. And so in this one sentence in this 2009 interview, Roger Kerr confirms the connections which we had documented from our research and these OIA documents. So the connections are very real. They're not just hypothetical, this could mean this kind of and hopefully no one's taken what we've said as to meaning this is a conspiracy theory. I guess when you look at it, you can see how some people would go that path, but we're not suggesting that.
Am I right as well in thinking that this is the first kind of media interview you've done on this? I know the post's out, but is this the first media interview you've done? Is it like all downhill from here? Jack Tame knocking on your door? Is that what the hope is?
I have talked to a couple of media people who are covering it, but this is the first one to be out. Yeah.
Maybe we should.
One, that's for sure.
Maybe
Yep.
maybe we could ask that question about why. Maybe we could wrap up with a bit of this, unless there's anything else that you guys want to add in. But why New Zealand? Why is this happening in New Zealand? Like I remember we used to be a training space for technology because we were a small country, we were isolated. Things like FPOS and that. I remember my sisters doing the OE to the UK and they had nothing like the banking system we did because they'd tested in New Zealand because we were a small enough population yet big enough to test on. No other countries on our borders, so we were a test case. Is this the same sort of thing? Why New Zealand? Why is Epstein? Why is he focusing on New Zealand for this?
Yeah, I was scratching my head about that too, and delved through quite a lot of his writing and his addresses in New Zealand and prefaces he's written for various other, publications. So, and found a bit where he was talking about New Zealand as having a lack of formal constitutional protections for property rights, and so, seeing us as an opportunity. So this. Compensation if property is taken or impaired. This kind of clause is in the American Constitution, and the judges and courts there have interpreted it not in the way he would like it to be interpreted. And so trying to implement his regulatory takings doctrine there, in America, you run into these constitutional hurdles. He thinks judges should strike, and the courts should be able to strike down any legislation which redistributes or impacts property rights and doesn't directly compensate back to the same people whose rights were taken. He views government as having no more rights beyond the particular group of people being represented at that time. So, yeah, he sees New Zealand as being a good test place because we don't have that constitution in that way. And so... Yeah, you go, Ryan.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a little bit right in here that kind of gets to that question because, on the one hand, it's like, okay, well, we don't really have constitutional protections for private property as such. I mean, there is some things in New Zealand law, but also in a 1999 address that he gave to the Business Roundtable, he said, unlike the United States, New Zealand places all legal power in the hands of the sovereign, which kind of, to me, says that as opposed to a place like the US where it's really, really difficult to get kind of sweeping legislative changes pushed through, it's easier here in New Zealand to do those kind of things. And so, I mean, you've seen... it happened initially in the 80s and 90s with kind of the neoliberal turn, right? There was just a raft of legislation that was pushed through. We've seen it with the coalition government, passing a whole bunch of things under urgency, just rolling back a whole bunch of stuff and doing a lot of things. And so I think our parliamentary system makes doing something like this easier than it would be somewhere else. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons why New Zealand is a good test case for this kind of thing. If you can get a government that's favorable to this type of stuff, you can get quite a bit of it pushed through without, legal challenges and things like that to hold it up. So that would be my guess. I don't know that he's ever come out explicitly and said why New Zealand, but he's hinted at those types of things.
We have a pretty active audience, and I know that there'll be people there shocked and kind of think what's going on. And I guess the question we'd always like to sort of wrap up with is where to from here? What can we do? What can the people watching do? Watching and listening, is there anything we can do, or do we just need to make people aware of what this actually? Do we need to make Mr. Luxon aware, in case he's not, of what this is actually all about?
Yeah, I think the more that people can go read the article, We've got more articles coming out too. We haven't put everything out yet, so follow along and see the follow-up angles as well. But yeah, talk to other people about it, and definitely be letting National Party voters and MPs know, because I think, you know, although there'll be strong support there for probably some aspects of the regulatory standards bill, I don't think this kind of property absolutism being an experiment ground for a fringe American legal theory, and, you know, the kind of lobbying that's gone on to get it there, I don't think that is necessarily going to sit that well with a lot of national or New Zealand First voters too. And we could see in the documents, you know, for example, that the actual detail that came out in the RSB, there was a discussion between the ministry and Wilkinson about whether property should be defined, and he was kind of like, no, it should be interpreted expansively by the courts, which is Epstein's preference, and other things like pushing for a presumption of compensation for regulatory takings unless Parliament explicitly excludes it. So a lot of the detail has been engaged on through these channels, and yeah, really sort of can see that there's been a special level of influence here that is different to what happened through the select committee, where everyone had an opportunity to contribute. I guess those examples of the actual, you know, the actual detail of what's been happening here are useful to share.
Ryan, you were going to say?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I agree with Melanie. Just being aware. For me, one of the toughest things about watching kind of the coalition government, and particularly, you know, the ACT Party, and in some ways, you know, Wilkinson's and other people in the New Zealand initiatives talk around the RSB, is just the way that they use language that sounds right and sounds good, but it means something else, you know? So I think it's useful to, it's like Melanie's saying, read those kind of articles that can give you a bit of the history of this kind of corporate movement, right? Which I view kind of ACT as kind of the torchbearers for here in New Zealand, so that you can, when they say things like, you know, equality or liberty, and they talk about property rights, and it sounds good and democratic, you can be a little bit skeptical, right? And I think with the RSB, if it was just about good regulation, then all of these independent bodies, including Seymour's own Ministry for Regulation, who have reviewed the bill and said that it's not good and that should be thrown out, wouldn't have a problem with it, right? And so I think that right there really just kind of shows you that this is an ideological project that has been driven in large part by these kind of special interests in the US and here in New Zealand, that they have something to gain by enshrining property absolutism into New Zealand law. And it's not just about good regulation, because it's been rejected by people who are experts in that. So I don't know that there's much we can do at this point, aside from just learning as much as we can about what's really going on and letting our politicians know that we're aware of what's going on, and that is going to, you know, hopefully manifest itself at the ballot box. But yeah, don't lose hope.
I think too, you know, for people that want to engage a bit more actively with it, something that's really helpful is to understand the arguments that are put forward, or the, you know, the rebuttals when people, you know, when we're saying we don't like this, and they're like, oh, but it's not enforceable. Governments don't have to follow it. And so, you know, there's a lot of those sort of arguments which deflect, but actually don't address the substance. And so, we know it, the governments don't have to follow it, but we've talked before and I've written about all the layers of soft power in the RSB that essentially look to redefine how regulation is conceived and assessed, and could lay the groundwork for binding legislation in the future. And Epstein himself has said that embedding ideas through norms and language and expectations can prove more effective than immediate legal enforceability, and you can work towards that. So, I think we need to be careful not to know how to engage with those arguments and to rebut them as well is a helpful thing to do.
Hey, Melanie and Ryan, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, and let us know when you're publishing other work so we can see what's going on from here. It's been great to have you on tonight. It's both a little bit scary and great at the same time, but we appreciate you giving us some time, and the link to the Substack article is in the description wherever this video is. On Facebook, it's on YouTube, it's on Twitch, it's in there. People will be able to find it through that. So thanks, guys. Appreciate your time, and we'll talk super soon, yeah?
Yeah, thanks so much. Great.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, folks.
There you go. Chewie, any reflections from you, sir? I did a lot of the talking there.
Yeah, just mulling over one aspect. It was just the comment that the proper place for working out the property rights and the loss and the takings and all of that would be every case, every problem goes through the courts. That's the best way to resolve their view of property rights. However, that is not the right way for us to discuss issues around the Treaty of Waitangi.
Yeah, human rights issues.
The courts were to be cut out of that. That the courts are not the place. An unelected judiciary discussing property rights around stolen land and what was and wasn't signed for. I just find those two parallels to be very, very interesting. I think the comment as well that there'd be a lot of national voters that are going, hey, I'm not signing up for it. This is not what I voted for.
Yeah.
This seems to be an undistilled ACT Party wet dream view of how New Zealand goes forward. It doesn't seem like it's been diluted or compromised or anything like that. It just feels like there isn't really anybody's eyes on this at all. And so ACT are just pushing it through.
Yeah. Yes. Let's do some chat, shall we? We can put the chat up on the screen now as well. And there it goes. It'll come up. We'll go from the bottom up because the bottom up are based around that conversation we just saw. Kiwi Bird just wants to know how do we that's a chop, that's axe. How do we axe the bill? Magenta in the chat, kia ora, saying share the clip when Pat posts it. The reason I highlighted that was I was thinking, Chewie, actually I feel like you sort of need that whole conversation. Like the conversation with
nice
Kieran
45-minute clip.
A conversation with Kieran last night, we put the whole clip out, and then I think I made 8 like bite-sized pieces from that. I really don't get the sense that that's going to be very easy to get a 6-minute bit out of, because it is so thick and dense with information. So yeah, I agree completely with what Magenta has said, but I guess what I'm also going to say is that might only come out as the one big clip, one big 45-minute clip. So you're probably not going to see it on Twitter because we don't put clips that long on Twitter. It'll probably just be on YouTube. So just be aware of that, but absolutely share that round. On another, we'll go to Jeremy's a bit later on. Very short, just says, evening all, why is our mainstream media not running stories on this? This bill will ruin New Zealand. Yeah, I mean, talking to Melanie a couple of days ago, she seemed to think that they would be, that there's more to come in the in the marketplace of ideas. I don't know what I was trying to say there. Kiwi Bird, of course, it's always a fringe American. 15mm history says Chris Luxon equals Scott Morrison. So useless. And I'm assuming that's Scott Morrison, Australian, not Scotty Morrison from Te Karere. Scotty Morrison. I'm assuming that. Howie V says growth is the mantra because it keeps feeding greed. It's a total psychosis.
God, how many things can we link back with the seeming ideal that there is unlimited growth?
Yeah.
That every business will always grow.
I think
is just a logical fallacy, and I just don't see why people like kill themselves trying to get it.
I also think we nailed something a couple of weeks ago, which is stuck in my mind, and that's for the philosophy of, everyone can get it, pull your socks up, it's available to everyone out there, is only even possibly true if resources are unlimited. If resources are limited, then that's not true. So if 1% of the country owns 30% of the wealth, whatever the numbers are, I think the top 10% is like 60%. I mean, that includes things like houses. There aren't infinity houses. There's a limited number of houses. There's a limited number of jobs. There's a limited amount of money that you can earn in that job. So this ideology of, just you can get where Graham Hart's got $5 billion. Not always. You can say that. I get it, right? Ideas, you can have unlimited ideas. But when you put those ideas into practice and starting a business, you come up against the truth that resources are limited. So everyone can't do it. And if the top 10% controls 65% or whatever it is of the wealth, then that includes tangible things. That's not about the ideas. They don't control 65% of the ideas. They control 65% of the wealth, made up of things like assets, finances. So that's where that falls over. Jeremy just wants to remind us it's 114 days till Christmas.
Look, I have brought this up before with you people. If you're going to bring things like that chat into my show, someone who works in retail, I will find out where you live. I'm sure you've bought merch from us. I will educate you.
I won't let Chewie see the merch addresses, Whānau. He does also want to know, sick shirt, Chewie, any info on where you get it?
Well, that can be purchased in exchange for money from the BHN shop.
Well, there we go. I just bought it.
That's on our website, the BHN website.
Haven't mentioned the shop much this week because the missus is in Auckland for the week, and she is very particular with where the transfers get placed, and apparently I don't do it well enough. So I can pack it and post it, and but there's a person who's in charge of the press, and it's not me. But she's back.
I'm going to start calling her quality control.
Yeah, she's quality. That's a good one. What's quality control been up to in Auckland at the moment? Seeing Whānau. And now we'll get on to the story that Peter started the whole chats off with tonight. What I would say to you is a Fig Jam. Fuck, I'm good. Just ask me.
Oh, yeah. Such a good call.
The only one critique I've got for that is when Chippy on camera, and I don't know whether it was 1 or 3, asked what Fig Jam was. He went, I think people will have fun Googling it. And I just went, you haven't got it stuck in your head. That's a shame. Because if he had just gone, fuck, I'm good, just ask me, they would have bleeped it, obviously, but it would have been perfect. So that's just me, though. I'm just being finicky.
Thankfully, stuff.co.nz just told everyone what it meant. So, I love that.
Okay, well, let's keep going, shall we? Because let's get into that. It is right here, ready to go. Prime Minister, I watched both 1 and 3. 1, I think 1 does a better job of also going, hey, bigger picture here, Whānau. This is not actually this is not the big win for Luxon like he says it is. Also, Luxon, when he says on the One News report, when he says because we're open for business, he's implying that this is his win. Because what he's saying is we will get these things because we're open for business. And I'm pretty sure on 3 they didn't show that quote. So it's definitely worth watching it on 1. Here we go.
And today, hyping investment in New Zealand to create jobs, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon. He hailed a $7.5 billion outlay from tech giant Amazon, one of the world's biggest companies. But the deal secured under Labor had been revealed several years ago. Labor accusing Luxon of trying to take credit. The Prime Minister saying he was up front. His senior political reporter, Benedict
Sorry, I
Collins.
pushed the space bar there. Not accusing him of taking credit. He did take credit. If he goes, because we're open for business, he's not saying when Labor was in, they're open for business and so are we. He's saying we're different from the last lot. We're open for business. He is taking credit for it. There's no question about that until he got called out.
At this Amazon Expo today, the Prime Minister was trumpeting the tech giant's investment here as immense and historic.
It will create up to 1,000 jobs, and it will deliver more than almost $11 billion worth of boost to
For how long?
our
Are they
GDP.
permanent?
New Zealand, he told the crowd, has been shuttered for investment for far too long.
Well, I have to tell you, that has truly, well and truly changed under the...
Bullshit.
So there, he's taking credit for it because if it's changed, what he's saying is it was shut for business under the last lot, but now we're open for business. So look, don't get it twisted. He is claiming this. He is saying that this is theirs. He is saying they're responsible for it. He's trying to take the glory. It's exactly what we talked about last night to Kieran when I said to Kieran, are they going to even build a single house in this term? Because remember, every time houses get built, they're there to cut the ribbon, but those houses were paid for and planned by Labor, just like this.
Too long.
Well, I have to tell you, that has truly, well and truly changed under this government because we are open for business and we are obsessed on growth, growth, growth above everything.
A curious observation to make, given this historic Amazon investment was announced 4 years ago by Labor.
Christopher Luxon's been trying to claim that his government's opened the door to foreign investment, and his proof point is a multi-billion-dollar investment by Amazon that was announced during Labor's time in government. I think that just shows that Christopher Luxon's rhetoric doesn't keep up with the reality.
Labor even put out this press statement, labelling Christopher Luxon the Fig Jam Prime Minister.
What does Fig Jam stand for?
Christopher Luxon is the Fig Jam Prime Minister. I think people can have a lot of fun Googling that.
So we Googled it. Fig Jam is Australian slang to describe someone who is overly boastful of their abilities. Fig Jam stands for I'm good, just ask me.
Christopher Luxon spends a lot of time talking about himself and running other people down. Actually, he should focus on leading the country forward.
He also really doesn't like to be lectured by Chris Hipkins. How do you think this is going to go down?
I think maybe he should stop blaming other people for his problems and start taking ownership of the very real mess that he's creating for himself.
To be fair, the Prime Minister did kind of acknowledge the deal wasn't really new.
I have to say, the investment today by AWS of 7.5 billion New Zealand dollars, let me just say that again, $7.5 billion from AWS in New Zealand has been well flagged.
And insists he's not pilfering.
Well flagged is very different from saying, and we'd like to extend congratulations and thanks to the Jacinda Ardern Labor government who started this process. Great work to start it. We will wrap it. You know, you could have actually done it properly and taken some credit. But it's obvious when you're saying, well, they will close the business, but we're open, you're trying to take it all and you get called out. And then when you get called out, this is the next time you could have said, look, be clear, well done to the last government for starting this off. And he still doesn't do it. He still doesn't do it.
Labor's work.
It's been over a number of years, I agree. I'm not disputing that.
And how do we know, Chewie? How do we know when he's struggling? Because he's stuttering. That's what he does.
It's been over a number of years, I agree. I'm not disputing that. I'm quite relaxed about that. But I'm celebrating the fact that we've got a big international investor here in New Zealand. That's what we want to see a lot more of.
Whether thanks to this government or the last, Amazon confirmed that its data centres are live as of today. Benedict Collins, One News.
TV3 had an interesting angle as well, Chewie. They were talking about Amazon won't confirm whether they have built the clouds or whether they're using other people's infrastructure. They didn't do that in One News. On the 3 News, they were like, are they using... And so straight away, you kind of think about the Kim.coms of the world and the megas and that kind of stuff. Are they bouncing off the back of someone else? And they wouldn't confirm, so I guess technically right now we don't know. But yeah, Luxon, the consummate amateur is what we could call him, could have actually... He could have been, I was going to say presidential. What's the way you describe it for prime ministerial? He could have had grace and said something about the previous government and still taken credit for the launch. And most people wouldn't have batted an eyelid, but it's because he didn't. It's because he said they were shut for business, but we're open for business. Makes it very clear he was trying to take the credit for it, and he can't. He cut the ribbon. Well done. You cut the ribbon. Congratulations for cutting the ribbon. Thanks to Labor for bringing this money through. Now, on top of all of that, Chewie, I don't know if it's the same for you, but when I hear about Amazon and money, I get a bit nervous. How they treat their staff in America. So there's a part of me which is going, I'm hoping this is not going to blow up in our face, our being New Zealand, because there is an element of distrust there when it comes to the word Amazon put along the side money.
I also don't trust the ability of the government to know how to deal with tech companies that have cut their teeth doing all sorts of shady deals with governments around the world. Like if we're talking about Amazon, that don't like to pay tax. If we're hosting a data center, cool, that's going to be our electricity, and probably so it can be greenwashed because of the percentage of our renewable power generation. But the services that they're selling, they won't have GST on it. They'll be all for overseas.
Yeah.
So it's just I don't think the government understands. Like when they go, it's 1,000 jobs, that has a big brackets afterwards of like, well, to create 1,000 jobs for maybe a year while it's building up. And then after that, you don't need a lot of staff to run a data center. So are we talking 100? It certainly seemed like in the initial comments, Luxon was saying, here's 100, 1,000 jobs, permanent jobs.
1 million, 5 million.
And it's, once again, this is the government making an announcement, and the news media is spread thin as they are, then spend the next 4 to 5 hours tearing it apart. So, yeah, I mean, somebody has just flicked me a newsroom article, and it's really hard to read an article when I'm on here, guys. But this story was posted 12 hours ago, and is really showing that this may be a complete sham.
Hang on. Okay, so pause for me, because I might just play a bit of the 3 News. Are you going to talk about the wetland story?
No, you play your story and I'll read this.
All right, so this is the thing I was just talking about, because there was a site that Amazon owns in New Zealand, and they were going to build a site there, but apparently the drainage wasn't good enough and it wasn't going to work for the building, so they didn't do it. And now they won't answer the question, have you built a site, or are you using other infrastructure already here? Obviously, I haven't pre-queued this up. I'm just having a bit of a guess that we're in the right spot. Let's have a listen.
That it's a significant investment.
But it's unclear exactly what that investment is.
Could you paint a picture of what this will look like in terms of where these facilities will be?
We are not disclosing the exact location of these data centers, obviously for security reasons, but they're in and around Auckland.
I mean, how on earth do they think they're going to keep that a secret? They really think they're going to have workers there that it doesn't get out and get through people and whatever. But anyway, this is the imagery they're showing, Chewie, but this is not the imagery in Auckland. They admit that.
AWS provided these videos to us, but later admitted the footage is of generic data centres, not the ones in New Zealand. It's also unclear if AWS built 3 data centres in Auckland, or if the data is hosted by infrastructure provided by other companies.
The centers are up and running, so they're live today, and we looked at different options and we made our choice.
What choice? He wouldn't say. Nor would he confirm if AWS abandoned plans to build a data centre on this vacant land in West Auckland.
The site that you're talking about is probably something that considered at some point in time.
What we do know is that at one point they did intend to build their own physical data centre from the ground up at Westgate in Auckland, but due to problems with drainage, there were delays there. They may still go ahead with that. They still own the land, but at the moment they've gone for what's called co-location, which is a quicker way to get the data centre region up and running.
A multi-billion-dollar technology investment in New Zealand launched under a cloud of confusion.
There you go. That'll do that, because that basically was the exact spot we needed to see.
So if they've abandoned the sites that they were buying, and from my understanding, you're talking about the same area of land as 4 rugby fields that they bought in Auckland, where land is not cheap. They had to drain a wetland, they had to relocate a bird nesting site, and then at the end of that, they've gone, we need it up and running now, we're just going to use someone else's infrastructure. So if that's the case, then where are these 1,000 jobs? Because the assumption is that the 1,000 jobs that they're talking about are building the thing. If they're not building the thing anymore, then there's not 1,000 jobs. If AWS is just buying space in an existing facility, there's no new jobs there.
Someone's external hard drive. They're just using someone's on the back of their computer.
Oh, this is fucked.
Well, we have the announcement. And that's the thing as well. You know what's going to happen? If it goes tits up, like if this turns out being a rip-off or bad for New Zealand, do you think Luxon will still take credit? Or do you think he'll start saying, well, it was the Labour government who actually put this in place. Nothing to do with me. It was them. Because, we were open for business, but they put it in place. Do you reckon that'll turn about as quickly as it could?
Well, look, the other thing I'd say is if my criticism is opening the door to Amazon as the business that it is, look, that criticism goes on Labour as well. Is this the business that we want to be attracting here? Last year, it paid $4.9 million worth of tax on $435 million of New Zealand revenue, while sending nearly $307 million offshore in cloud fees to its sister company.
There was a story about what Amazon asked Jacinda for. Where did I have that? I wonder if I can find it. Oh, yeah, there we go. RNZ story. It's on that screen. I'll just put it on that screen, and then I'll be able to show it to you. Come on, little computer.
That's how the sausage is made, people.
Here it goes. Go from the big screen to the small screen.
Whoop. Magic.
Oh, and I just freaking pushed the X button. Anyway. I just closed it, so we'll just keep talking. Look, I mean, this is the thing, right? And because Amazon has a pretty terrible reputation in America for how they treat their workers, one would hope that obviously they'll have to adhere to New Zealand laws for how they treat their workers here. Great to have investment in the country, of course, but, I don't think we, the country, should ever sell our soul just for an extra dollar. And $11 billion is a lot of money. We're $250 billion a year, give or take, is our GDP. So what's that, like 5% of our GDP? Obviously, it's not in 1 year, but that's a pretty big chunk of money. I mean, that almost pays for their tax cuts, please. This is one of those watching with concern, watching with mistrust, and we'll see how it pans out. Some chats that have come up. Wooming says Luxon stole Labour's homework again. James says there is nothing to take credit for. No data centre. Send newsroom for full story. They buried a wetland and left the site empty. I'm assuming that's what you're going to go to, Chewie.
Yeah. That's the story.
The one interesting how the 3 News story didn't talk about a wetland. They just said the drainage was no good, probably because it's a wetland, but they didn't.
Where's all this water coming from? And these annoying birds.
New Zealand policy development going from Chat GPT to Alexa. Yeah. And Mouse says, our Amazon drivers will be called NZ Post couriers. Yep. Yeah, are there any companies that run their own trucks? I guess there are, aren't there? Of course, there's lots of them. I'm thinking about supermarkets and stuff. They run their own trucks. So, yeah. So it's not just all done by courier. Hey, let's get to this last story, shall we? If I can find it. Because Uncle Winnie, a bit gumpy guts is old Uncle Winnie, mostly because how the media is reporting this change of policy, law, rules around. It's about how we're reporting it, not the actual idea that it's. And I will say this bluntly, I found the perfect example of this today, Chewie. I wrote a tweet, and it said, there won't be any more houses in that $4 to $5 million band. Because if your house is worth 4.5, are you going to leave it there or are you going to put it to 5? For some person who's worth $500 million, do you think they care about going from 4.5 to 5? No. So the $4 million houses will disappear, that band, right? And that means the people who would have been in that band, New Zealanders, they'll go down to the next band, which is the $3 to $4 million, which they'll buy comfortably because they could have stretched. And that means the people that were in the $3 to $4 million band will be pushed out by the people who can pay more for their houses, and they'll go down and they'll go down and they'll go down, and it'll increase the prices of all houses, and it'll make it harder for first-time buyers to get in. That's what this will end up doing. So when Luxon said it's only 10,000 houses, no. If your house is worth 4.7, do you honestly think you're not going to put it on for 5.1? All the negotiations are gone. You got a foreign buyer. They can't pay you 4.95 for it. They have to pay you 5 for it. How many $5 million houses do you think are going to be out there? But I did realize one thing, Chewie. Finally, Mr. Luxon has been correct in that this is putting downward pressure, not on rents, but on prices, because it's going to go down and down and down as the prices go up. So downward pressure is finally coming. Not the good stuff, though. The bad stuff. So this is what Mr. Peters had to say today about how the media are reporting this story.
Right, instrumental in enacting the original foreign buyers ban. Just going back to the earlier story that we were talking about there with Robbie Paul, was New Zealand First Leader, Foreign Minister Winston Peters. Does this latest change allowing wealthy investors to buy a house in New Zealand represent any kind of loosening of the policy?
Yes.
Winston Peters, Foreign Minister, joins me now on the line from Northland. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Look, I understand that you are very focused in your language here. You don't want us referring to this as a loosening of the foreign buyer.
Don't want us reporters reporting in an accurate way. You don't want that. It's like Luxon going, I don't pay attention to the polls when they're bad. Winston Peters, I don't want you guys reporting it this way, which is accurate.
Ban. Can you explain why?
Well, because over 99% of the market is denied to them. They can't purchase it. They can't be involved in it.
Hang on. You say you don't want the reporters to say it's loosening the rules. And then you're also saying that they can buy in that 1%, even what your numbers are saying, which means the rules have been loosened. So you can't say this is not loosening the rules when the rules have been loosened so they can get into that 1% number you're using.
The market is denied to them. They can't purchase it. They can't be involved in it. And over 99% of the market means that the foreign buyers ban remains. What we've changed is if someone's going to spend $5 million or more, and many are spending 20 or 30 million or more, then they will be able to buy a house, providing the house, whether it's an old one or a new one to be built, is $5 million or more. Now, that's a massive change in terms of the standards that the National Party was setting when they said you could buy one for $2 million whether you were invested or not.
So you feel like you've managed to bring some change here to this?
Well, the National Party's policy was $2 million whether you invested or not, you can be a foreign buyer, and then no qualifications. And we came along and said, no, you can't do that.
God, he's sounding old. Like, I mean, like, I'm not actually saying this in a mocking way. Some people might say, don't kind of say that sort of thing, but he's just sounding old, and he's struggling and burbling through these words, and he's our foreign minister. Sorry, you're going to say something, Chewie?
I was going to say it's also aided by the fact that he's calling in from what feels like the same phone line that Winston Churchill used in 1943.
I thought you were going to say he's calling in from the 1940s. Yeah.
We will fight on the beaches. We will fight them everywhere. Yeah. He sounds old and from the past.
Yeah. Well, which are both true, actually.
That'll be a competitive in the New Zealand market. It'll be up against Kiwi buyers. It's not fair. We want a policy that actually accesses the interests of the investor in the New Zealand market, accesses their funds, but also gives them a right to live here if they buy a house of a certain limit.
Wasn't that also
$5 million or more?
Wasn't that also possibly the sort of thing that you could have done back in 2018 when you instituted the ban in the first place?
Yes.
you know.
So if this is the right answer now, Winston, why did you not implement it in 2018? Which he actually has he basically just says, no one thought of it, which is he gets out of the question, but I don't think we believe him.
Getting a target on investment was part of this.
Of course, you're right. But no one thought of it at the time because people were so upset with the amount of foreign buying that was going on. So that's how the blanket reaction happened. You're quite right. We could have done that in 2018, and that would have been a sound policy way back then. But that's what happens when you have quite a violent electoral reaction to offshore buying, as happened also in the west coast of Canada and Vancouver in particular.
Yeah, explain that to me a little bit. I heard you referring to what happened to Canada there. Is this, you've got a concern that the money that comes in on the back of all of this investment is just going to sort of blow in and blow out again? What's the problem there?
No, what happened in Canada was it came in and it blew the market price through the roof. So instead of competing against Canadians, the Canadians were competing against the world. And that's what the National Party's prospect would have had for us as well if we'd have gone with the 2 million policy. And that's why we decided, no, you're not competing against the rest of the world. In fact, we're only going to be accessing that to investors putting in billions of dollars, which we desperately need.
Yeah. Well, that's not even true, Mr. Peters. It's not for investors putting in billions of dollars. It's for investors putting in $5 million. So come on, let's not get around that. The other thing is, this is I think one of the most important questions we asked last night to Kieran is, what about farms? We don't know about that yet. The next important question, which we didn't ask last night, but we'll ask right now, if someone's listening, is after they've bought their $5 million home and after they've invested their $5 million into business, can they then buy any home they want after that? Are you going to see wealthy people coming to New Zealand, spending 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 million on a home, and then go, hey, this landlord thing's pretty good in New Zealand. Let's buy another dozen homes that are between 800,000 and 2 million. We don't know that yet either. Now, and just finally, Chewie, he said a lot of houses were being purchased internationally, and that's why they made the changes in 2018. So in 2017, there was 90,000 houses sold in New Zealand. 90,000. According to interest.co.nz, 3,369 dwellings were purchased in 2017 and 1,770 sales in the same year. I'm not quite sure why there's a difference between those two numbers. So let's just split the difference. There's probably 2,500 or so international sales out of 90,000. Now that's not nothing. That's 3%. Is that a lot though? I don't know, but that's so say 3% of the houses purchased in 2017 were to foreign buyers. It does actually feel like quite a lot. Is that a huge amount though? Yeah, I mean, what's that? 1 in 30 houses being sold to a foreigner, someone not from New Zealand. So
no, that sounds it sounds a bit scapegoaty, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, if there was 90,000 houses sold, but there was 200,000 New Zealanders that were trying to buy a house, then those 3,000 that were sold to foreign nationals, that's 3,000 that miss out of the Kiwis that are going to miss out. So I don't know. I don't know what I think about that. It doesn't feel like a big number, but 3% might be a lot. Be interesting to see what the chat thinks. The chat will always correct me. Is that a big number? 3% to foreign nationals? Is that a big number? Yeah. Any thoughts there, Chewie, about old man time himself?
Oh, just as growing irrelevance. Yeah, look, he can spin this as much as he wants. Like anything that holds up a mirror to Winston Peters' combative hypocrisy is A-OK by me. But yeah, this whole thing just seems to be a bit of a beat up. Like, we have a housing problem, and it's not because we're not creating enough $5 million homes for people. It's because we are enabling the tax black hole that is home ownership in general. the my investment portfolio is such an entrenched way of making money in this country, but also it's such a focused thing. Like, it affects one particular generation. The guys that realized, in the early 90s, that there were such big tax benefits to just buying a home and then going to your bank and going, I own a home. I want to put that up for collateral so I can buy another home, and then another home, and then another home. And our lawmakers did it. So they didn't want to shoot the golden goose. That it's not mansions. It's just ordinary 2, 3, 4 bedroom homes. And your question is, like, once these guys tick the box of, yes, I've invested $5 million. Yes, I've bought a $5 million home. Now I'm a citizen. I understand that if I just take all of my other money and just buy a couple of streets, that there is no tax obligations. This is something that I can't do in my home country. It's something that I can't do in a range of countries. And that, as well as, I don't know, cheese rolls, Moro bars, the All Blacks, is what brought me to your country. So I think if we need to protect New Zealand and New Zealanders and the idea that we should all have a house to live in, we need to fix the housing market. And that's a much bigger question.
Because if you think about this just logically, I don't see how, if you are a resident in New Zealand, like after you become a resident or a citizen, legally you can be stopped from buying whatever the fuck you want when it comes to houses.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what, once you're past that point,
yeah,
there's nothing stopping you.
All right. Before we go, a little lightness for the end of the night.
Hey. It's me and Ilva.
Hey, Nala, come here. Come look at this. Come look at this.
I'd love to call my dog over, but she's a grumpy thing. It won't come out of her armchair in the lounge where it's warm.
Can you see? Look over there. Can you see the picture of you?
At you.
What do you think?
At you.
What do you think? Is it good? Is it bad? She's like, I'm not normally allowed up on you like this. Oh, cuddles. Off you go. There you go. Yeah, so we'll do something with that merch in the next week or so. I'll try and work on it maybe this weekend. Back to you, Matt, mate. Good girl. Lie down. Good girl. All right. Now, actually, I'm not sure what's happening on Thursday night. There was a chance we're having the Greens come on. I haven't actually also looked at that. Raven says that we've got to do cats as well. Well, I think that's Emily's department. She's got the cat. So, I mean, like, we can't just make up some fictional cat. It's got to be real animals. So there you go. Okay, guys, I think we're done for tonight. I think we're going to head off, get an early one. Anything else we need to tick off before the end of the night?
If you guys have the mental bandwidth for it, go on National's Facebook page and bully the bullshit out of them. Like, no, I'm not even kidding. Their social media team seem to be on a real tear, just hammering this point that National have somehow, just by the pure skill that they have, brought down the inflation from 7 to 2.
But not just New Zealand. National's brought down inflation across the whole world.
No, I don't think we're supposed to. No. That's
because Jacinda caused
there's not another rest of the world.
No,
Stop
Jacinda caused
the rest of the world, Pat.
But Jacinda caused it to go everywhere.
That. No, you're using your brain, Pat. We can't have that on National social media. It makes it all fall apart.
All right.
But I'm just saying, it's so it's that old adage that if they believe this, they're woefully incompetent. Because it just flies in the face of all context, all history, all understanding of economics and how fucking money works. And if they're not woefully, criminally incompetent, then they're lying. They're lying.
Hard.
They're treating the New Zealand voter like they're idiots.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard when you get to the situation that they're either lying or they're incompetent. Neither of those is a good solution for people running the country.
Look, if I disagreed with their political positions, that's one thing. Like, and they can go, hey, look, we think we should feed the homeless into vans because we'd save so much money for not feeding them. There might be an objective, horrible truth in that. You know, or they won fair and square and they just have a different economic position and they're backing up that position with actual fucking facts that stand up to inspection. They're not doing that. They are stoking fear. They are literally saying that that Labor backs the gangs, that taking the patches away has solved our gang problem in the space of a year, that National brought the interest rates down. They are just saying that over and over and over again. And don't you dare put up a graph that said it was trending down. Don't mention the fact that the Reserve Bank predicted that it would happen, and that's what's actually happened. Don't dare mention that although our interest rates during COVID was up at 7%, it was below our trading partners. It was below many of the countries that we measure ourselves against. Don't let facts, history, and context get in the way of their pre-election messaging. But they are stoking fear, they are treating the electorate like idiots, and some idiots are buying it. So bully them on their Facebook page. Go with God.
Ave Maria. Is that what you say?
Yeah. You have my blessing.
All right, guys, that's us for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night for another edition of the biggest, hairiest news show in the land. Oh gosh, I can't do two things at once. I'm doing two things at once. Watch me. There you go. I've done two things at once. And yeah, we'll catch you tomorrow night. Not too much else to say. Thank you so much for our guests coming on tonight. That was amazing. Just a reminder again that the way we share that around is to share that around. Obviously, the Substack is in the show notes, so you can just share that around. It's a big read. I mean, it's 8 pages printed out. It took me a while to get through it, but it's a good read. Well, it's not a good read. It's a worthwhile read, and you can also share that. Clip will be out as a clip early in the hours tomorrow morning. We'll make sure we get it out there, and you can tell everybody about it. All right, guys. All right, team. That's a terrifying image on there. Maori order for your facial image. Sheesh.
That's good. It is spooky season.
Oh, there you go. I got nothing else tonight, show. I'm a done burger. Yourself? Anything else you want to add?
No. I think I've said everything that I needed to say tonight. I am also done like a roast chicken. Stick a fork in me.
Good. That's a good way to end the show. All right, team. All the best. Catch you tomorrow. Hooroo!
Cheers, fam.